We will be the moderators for your Riot panel. Real quick, do our panelists want to introduce themselves? Say what you do at Riot, how long you've been working there, and what your favorite video game is. Doesn't have to be Riot. We won't tell.
Hi, I'm Melissa Shim. I'm a senior animator at Riot. I only joined about a year ago. Favorite video game's kind of tough, but I tend to go back and call out Monkey Island from back in the day by LucasArts. So.
Yeah, that's a great one. Hi, I am Steph Bedford. I am a narrative producer at Riot Games on the games League of Legends, Wild Rift, and Teamfight Tactics. And I've been at Riot a little over a year and a half. My 2 years will be in September. And my favorite game, Kingdom Hearts. Probably 2 if I had to choose one of them.
Hello, my name is Abby Sherlock, aka Riot Sherlock. I'm an associate game producer on our future titles. I've been at Riot for almost a year. Next Tuesday is my 1-year anniversary.
You made it.
Yes, congrats, good job. Yeah. My favorite game of all time, you did Kingdom Hearts as a franchise. I'm gonna do Zelda as a franchise, but then my favorite is Skyward Sword.
Ooh, controversial.
Controversial pick, yeah.
Depends on if you had the Wii Motion Plus or not.
I did not.
Hi, I'm Tara Ray. I am a producer at Riot Games. I am on the Summoner's Rift team, specifically on the Balance Pod and on our seasonal pod. So preseason content, mid-season content, as well as balance patches, mid-scopes, all that sort of stuff. My handle is Riot Yasna, and my favorite game is probably Final Fantasy XIV.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael Chin. I'm a software engineer in the R&D department. I've been at Riot for just over 6 months. I joined in October, and favorite game probably would have to be MapleStory before Big Bang.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, moving on to the first question. We'll start with Melissa and we'll go down the line. What is your favorite thing or aspect of that Riot is able to offer you?
Let's see. I think right now for me, it's been kind of like the ability to slow down because I'm also in the R&D department. So, we're not on a live cadence release right now, obviously. We're in like pre-production kind of phases. So that's been kind of nice because my previous gig was pretty heavy in production, very high pressure environment. So it's been pretty nice to be, just take a step back, be able to, feel comfortable failing, experimenting, having very kind of proactive managers to help, figure out, what my career path at the studio might be. So I think just that very kind of transparent and open support structure has been pretty cool to see.
Nice. My favorite thing that Riot has been able to offer me in my time there is probably my coworkers. Riot does a really good job of hiring amazingly passionate people who are really good at what they do. If you are interested in someday working for Riot, I will tell you that the interview process is long and hard, and that is such that your coworkers are some of the best people that you'll ever work with. So I'm surrounded every day by people who actively care, don't, not go the extra mile, always have that player focus, always want to do the right thing, and are not looking to cut corners. And that's not always true everywhere in the industry. So my team and the people that I get to work with, whether directly or indirectly, has just been really cool.
So Stephanie is a narrative producer, and I work as an associate game producer, and then we also have a game producer here. So you're going to hear a lot of production stuff.
We're all different too.
Different too.
We're all
yeah.
actively doing different jobs.
Different jobs. And so I was going to say, related to that, about why Riot has been special for me is I'm entry level associate, right? So I graduated from UCSD in 2019, and then from USC, less woo. Oh, we got a woo! Yeah, fight on. In last year. So for me, finding out as an entry-level producer what I like, since my team works with every discipline, has been such a gift because I've learned a lot about, every part of game development, from our live operations, from programming, art, All the disciplines that make up like this beautiful web that is game dev, I've been able to learn what actually, and this is something my mentor told me, finding out sometimes what you don't like is more important than finding out what you do like. Because then you can say, oh, that's probably not the path for me, but then I can narrow down my focus to find where my path is. And I feel like Riot is like really empowered me to do that.
I could mention a lot of the same, but to keep it different, I'm going to take a different tactic. And something that Stephanie mentioned was like real true player focus. I've worked at a lot of different studios all over the industry, a lot of them mobile, a lot of them more heavily monetization focused. And Riot as a studio really tries to put its players first and make decisions that players themselves will actually appreciate. So we will totally make decisions that like aren't right for our bottom line, or that, you know, maybe controversial, but they are what players are craving right now and what players need. Like, we don't just look at hard data. We don't look at what will just drive numbers. We look at what puts players at the core of that experience and makes them have a good time. And that is like not something that you get everywhere in the industry. Like, we all like to think that the industry is all passion driven and we all want to make amazing games, which is true. But sometimes the people who are making the decisions, or the ones with the paychecks, aren't the ones who care about those kind of things. So being able to be at a studio where I can unabashedly make something that is going to be a net good product for a player feels amazing.
For me, kind of going again into the team aspect, as a software engineer in games, usually you have a really big culture of crunch. You got to get stuff out immediately, fast, get stuff done real quick. And sometimes that's a really high stress environment. Similar to Melissa, like I said, I'm in R&D, so we have a slower cadence, but even in that slower cadence, I appreciate that my coworkers will kind of step up if someone is falling behind and say, hey, you look like you got a lot on your plate, do you mind if I take something for you? So the collaborative nature of my team and across Riot is also something that I've come to really appreciate in my time here.
Cool. Thank you for your answer. Michael and Melissa both touched on this a little bit, but next question, what are some tips you have for maintaining work-life balance in not only a busy industry, but at a very busy company? We'll start with Stephanie, go down the line of Michael, and then end it off with Melissa.
Yeah. This is really hard, and it starts before you ever enter the industry. So, like, cool, if you're already crunching yourself in college to make your game, you have ruined your pace forever. Congrats. You have to get off that train now. Like, it will never slow down. And so you really have to set those boundaries so early, because game dev is a marathon. It is not a sprint. So find things that have absolutely nothing to do with your job and invest time there. I horseback ride, I do pole dancing, I have friends that have nothing to do with my game dev experience, my life. They're like, oh, I don't know what you do every day, which is so healthy. And you have to keep these and pour time into them, because game dev will eat you and it will just consume and take and take. So start now. Start before you ever have your first paid industry gig of like setting aside time that has nothing to do with games. And that's not playing games. That's not doing research. That's not reading game dev books. That's not going out on blogs and forums. Like, that is still in service of your gaming future. So things other than that, whatever it is, the like less useful, the better, honestly. So happy.
Yeah, no, Stephanie covered a lot. I think the biggest thing, which is important, and I think, like you said, if you develop it early, it's a tool in your toolbox, so you can use it when you're feeling particularly tired, right? So ideally, you can find that balance between feeling that tension of I'm working and I'm learning and I'm doing new stuff versus feeling too complicit, right? Because you don't want to be coasting. You want to be learning and you want to be getting better. I think something for me that I started doing was like hard hours of like time blocking, especially for social media. So I was like, okay, I'm going to see all this stuff about maybe a new patch or like new stuff coming out. And sometimes it's really fun, but also our community team are paid to do that. I don't need to do that. That's not my job. And so being like, okay, cool, I can read this and see this, but only time block it out. So say, I want to see this for 15 minutes, and being strict with yourself, being like, okay, I'm going to turn this off now. Because sometimes it can get just loud. And it's hard to focus when it's very loud, and you need to give yourself that grace.
gaming is like a double-edged sword because it's a passion industry. We all want to do this. We all want to be here, which is great and awesome. It means that we get to wake up every day and love what we do. But that also can be used against you to be like, oh, we can't push back this deadline, and it's going to be a little bit worse if you don't do this thing. And then you can find yourself working 80-hour weeks. Like, it's about deciding just as much as what you do is what you don't do and knowing when to push back. Like, it's important to know that, like, the industry is staffed by humans, and you should be able to keep a regular human pace. And if that is not something that you're able to achieve and you're not enabled to by the people around you, then you're not in a good environment. And there's this urge, particularly among like new people in the industry, to like work really hard, put in my steps, earn my paces so that way I can be here forever, which is like a great attitude to have, but the detriment of your physical and mental well-being is not worth it. As producers, one of the things that at least I try to do a lot is actively encourage my team to take their PTO, take their time off, organize things that are good for mental health, make sure that people are slowing down, because ultimately in the long run, we'd rather have a healthy individual who can contribute amazing and passionate work for the longevity of their career over somebody who puts in really, really great work for 5 years and then burns out. Like 5 years is the average lifespan of anybody in games, regardless of what studio you're at or how many times you hop around. 5 years. If you make it past that 5 years, you're doing really, really well. But you can only make that if you are human and you treat yourself gently.
Yeah, not much more to add on, honestly. It's just like, okay, you really want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, you're getting your 8 hours of sleep. Yes, you want to be trying to find time to hang out with friends, but as mentioned before, it's just like, make sure you have those friends in the first place. Don't just devote yourself to video games all the time, because that will really just drain you. You'll get really tired. You'll find it hard to get out of bed. Eventually, it'll just become a chore, and you'll be like, okay, I used to have so much fun making a game. Why am I so tired now? Why can't I get out of bed? Why am I depressed? So really take that time to get out, get some sun, touch grass, right? Touch grass even. Just hang out with friends, find hobbies, and just honestly develop yourself as a person and set aside that time to like make yourself a little healthier and just like a little bit stronger every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to add like anything else to this list. We've pretty much covered it all, exercise, eat healthy, go see the world, really. Like, I lived in Europe for a bit, and work-life balance is very different over there. Like, people, like,
Very different.
the studio lights went off at 4 p.m. You go home, kind of thing. So North America, I think, very, very different work hard, party hard culture, but just be mindful what your limits are, and, set boundaries where you need to. Take care of yourself first, and, don't let the pressure, get to you. It's, you got to find what kind of works for you. So just be mindful of it, I think, so.
The hardest thing you might ever have to do as a game dev is walk away from something that you're really passionate about because it's not healthy for you. But it's important that if you do get in that scenario, you're not the one to blame there. The people who made that system and enforced that kind of work are the people to blame there.
Yeah, and just students, so like if you are graduating and you're tired and you enter the industry already tired, guess what? You're gonna stay tired and you're gonna hit that 5-year mark and you're gonna burn out. So like, if you're already coming in burning yourself as a student for your projects, for your studies, for everything that you have to do in your student life, and then you hit the industry's not gonna be like, cool, now you made it, like, great, it's easy now. Like, the industry will continue to roll, especially if you're like Tara and I on a live service game. I mean, we ship every 2 weeks. It is a marathon. Like, there is no pushing for the next milestone to push to the next milestone. So
Don't let the fact we call them sprints fool you. It is a marathon.
it's a marathon.
All right, I'm just going to have a side note. Campbell was really bummed when Michael talked about touching grass. He wanted that joke for himself.
Good job, Michael.
Okay, but Stephanie did talk about, like, we are all students, and some of us may be graduating really soon, Campbell. But what advice are you able to offer people who are looking to break into the gaming industry as a whole and or specifically get a job at Riot? Oh, right. And we'll start with Abby.
Okay. I'm going to be very, very honest, but like optimistic. Right now, particularly, it is very hard. I'm just going to say that more so than general in the past. I would say like 8 years. I'm so sorry, Campbell. I'm like looking over there. But like, it's just tough right now. So again, give yourself some grace, give yourself some heart that you're in extreme circumstances. So realize that and then push forward. One of the most helpful things that I had an early mentor to was go, who do you want to be? And I was like, oh, okay, very metaphysical. But who do I want to be in my career? Like who is the role model that is doing what I want to do in 30 years? Okay, let's find them. Google, LinkedIn, look at them, stalk them in the casual social media way, looking
the
at their
not
profile.
stalker way.
Yeah, not in person, but look at that profile and track how they got to where they are. So if someone is the senior VP of XYZ at game company, probably at one point in time, they were an intern somewhere. What did they do? Were they in programming? Do you want to be a designer? Were they an artist? Did they switch mid-career from marketing to something? Okay, cool. Keep track of that. So just see that everyone's path is different, but then also backwards track. Say, where do I want to be in 40 years? And if you don't know, that's okay. You just start by saying, okay, I kind of like this person. They seem cool. I think this is kind of what I want to do. And as you puzzle piece it back with the timeline, it's going to be easier to take the first step when you realize, oh, they might have been the president of XYZ, but they were an intern at some little film studio in Culver City 30 years ago. And that should be kind of grounding and affirming for your journey too.
I've got 3 really concrete pieces of advice. 2 are super physical, 1 is not. The first one is have a portfolio of something. It should be a playable portfolio or at least viewable. Depends on what kind of place you want to go into. But like have a game. Have something you've either made by yourself or you made with friends. It doesn't matter if it's half finished. It doesn't matter if you're using placeholder art assets. Like that's something that if I'm on the other side of the interview table, I can ask you, how did this development process go? Where did you have to make cuts? What was this like? So just having it somewhere that is playable, easy to get to, that takes all of the stress and pressure off of me as somebody who's looking at your portfolio to like just see what you've done. The second is keep making games. Like it is really hard and it's really not fair to ask you to work a regular 9 to 5 to make ends meet and then make games on the side. But like, I didn't get my first job in the industry until 6 months after I was out of college, and I kept making games, and it wasn't all my portfolio games. It was the most recent one that I had made that just happened to make its way through. And it wasn't even digital. It was a tabletop game. It was pen and paper, like Dungeons and Dragons, and it just happened to catch somebody's eye. So like, just keep making games. And then the third one is determination. Channel your inner Undertale, because like, very often, it's not you. You're going to fill out 200 plus applications and the algorithm's going to filter you out and you're just never going to reach a real person. And like, that sucks. I am so sorry that you all have to go through that. But that's what working is like these days. So when you get those 200 no calls, no answers, no like even rejection letters, it's not you. Like sometimes you just need to stick at it until you get in front of somebody. And then when you do get in front of somebody, go nail it. But like, don't take it personally. Keep creating. Keep your head up. You'll get there.
Yeah. Basically, kind of those things. Definitely stay determined, but a little bit more into like what you want to look for in a position. I was told this piece of advice after I joined Riot. My producer actually talked to me about, he has 3 Ps that he looks for when he's looking at a job. You have people, you have project, and you have position, right? So if you find a job that fulfills 2 of those 3 Ps, you're in a really good place. So to kind of go into those more, the first P, people, obviously it's the people you're working with, the immediate team you're working with, the people you interact with, but also kind of the leadership of the company and things of that nature. So if you enjoy the people, that's 1 P down, right? The next one, project. Obviously it's the thing you're working on. In video games, it'll probably be the video game that you'll be on the most. If you like the video game, you like the pitch, you like the vision, that's another P down. And the third one, position. So that'll be like title, that'll be like benefits, that'll be like pay. If that'll help you make ends meet or even go above that, that's another P down. If you're able to find a position that gets you 2 of those 3, you're in a great spot. If you can find one that has all 3 of those Ps, you'll probably want to stay there for a while.
I'll probably recommend like working on like networking skills. You know, you want to develop your social skills. It can, like from my experience, sometimes I'll get emails from students and they'll just be asking questions, but it feels very transactional. And I think if you can go beyond that and make it like authentic as much as possible and like keep the relationship with these people, right? It'll, you know, be better for both parties in the long run versus like, hey, can you get me a job, you know? Or can you tell me how to get a job? So I think authenticity when you're interacting with peers and, you know, people you may end up working with in the future is pretty important. So, yeah.
Yeah, the days of like a 5-star person, like a really good programmer working on their own to finish everything are like mostly gone outside of the indie space. Like if you are terrible to work with, nobody will want to hire you because games is a very collaborative group effort. So like, be a good person to work with.
Yeah. To wrap us on this topic, I've got a few things. Abby mentioned it, is finding people who can kind of be inspirational and a North Star is really great. However, I will caution you, the portal has closed behind them. You cannot take the same path that any person before you has walked. That is not how game dev works. So while you can use them as an inspiration point, know that like that door behind them has closed and there is no one path into games. In fact, if we all got up here and told you exactly how we got in, none of our stories would match. So I will steal this thing that I heard at GDC as well. It's like, you know, getting into games is being struck by lightning. And there's a luck component to it. You can improve your chances to be struck by lightning. You can stand on the top of the hill. You can go grab, you know, a lightning rod. You can do all these things. And these are the things that, you know, I will give you concrete advice on is your resume and your cover letter should be tailored to the role that you are applying for. It should not be general. I don't care if you were the artist, the designer, the producer, the writer. I don't need to see that in your resume for a production job, for a narrative job, for a designer job, because I don't need a jack of all trades, I need a specialist. Don't apply to the AAA spaces unless you're really wanting to have a fight with 1,000 other people who are applying. Like, no joke, that's your odds. You're setting yourself up to have to fight 1,000 other people in those applications. So the more you go for a sexy Riot job or a sexy PlayStation job or your Nintendo dream or your Pokemon company, like those bigger companies, there's massive amounts of applicants right there that you're just putting yourself up for, and you're setting yourself up in a numbers game that's not in your favor. So make sure you're really specific, you're really tailored to the job that you're posting, you know, that's posted and that you're applying for. Try to find maybe not the AAA company that you're going up against everybody, especially to start with, and really know how to show the hiring manager that you can do that job. Even if you've never done that job before, there's ways to be able to show that you can through previous experience. And that's what I need to see on your resume. That's what I need to see in your cover letter. And always go pay your bills first. Like, you're humans, so like pay your bills. Do not just like sit out and ride and like hold out the hope that I have to work in games. Like, take care of yourselves. Go find a job. Go put food on the table. Go like make sure that you can live. That's way more important than working in games.
Beautiful. Thank you. I know I'm going to be reviewing the VOD, taking notes, trying to get a job, graduating in 4 weeks. I'm a little bit scared, but
Congrats.
anyway, on to our next question. Looking through the lens of diversity, how does Riot as a studio encourage both intersectionality and representation in games and also in your day-to-day life? And let's start this one with Tara and end it off with Abby.
Oh boy, I get to start with this one. So I get to mention the word rig, which is what everyone here is probably going to mention. We have a specific structures at Riot called Rioter Inclusion Groups. And these are rigs that are anything from like rad genders, which can be everything, you know, marginalized folks like non-binary folks, or even, you know, women and just kind of like completely out there stuff. Like, it's just rad genders, everything about gender. There's Asian Pacific Islander, there's LGBTQIA plus called Rainbow Rioters, everything under the sun. And we're still trying to spin up more as time goes on. But the thing that really makes these rigs important is that they're not just like social clubs, they're not just there for advocacy for those people, but like our teams actively engage with these rigs when we are doing character representation. For instance, Melio, one of the brand new characters in League of Legends, we developed that specifically with our Latina group to make sure that the representation was appropriate, to make sure that they felt like they could resonate with that character, that they could see themselves in it. So it's not just like okay, let's sit here and talk as we're all people of this sort of shared marginalized identity and make sure that we have each other's backs. It then goes the other way, where it is helping inform decisions that the company is making to give really diverse and accurate representation for our characters. Our champions team has this motto that's like, we want to be the most colorful, evocative, and representational cast in all of gaming. And like, we can't do that without listening to the actual voices and the actual people behind the identities that we're trying to represent. And rigs really help us as a studio accomplish all that.
I'm going to go on a little different tangent, kind of talking about the makeup of the teams that we have at Riot. When I first started my career, I worked at AT&T, really big behemoth as a software engineer, and there were a lot of white male people there, so not much representation as far as the community or like the workplace community goes. So being at Riot now, where I can see peoples of all different genders, where they can express themselves how they want, like I see people dressed in all kinds of different ways, have all different kinds of hairstyles, all different kinds of skin colors, and like different ways of expressing themselves. The fact that you have that freedom to do so, and everyone's welcome to do that, and also the fact that I get to work with all these different genders just kind of helps me open my world up as well to see a little more of how people outside of my own little community is like. Because I'm obviously not going to know everyone in the world, so being exposed to even a little bit more of that diversity that's out there in Riot helps me out a lot just to take some more open-minded decisions, have a little more empathy for people in other groups that I might not know of, things of that nature, and really helps inform my work.
Yeah, so I've only been there for a little while, so my exposure is pretty limited. But like, from my experience with like even just going through the recruiting process, like 5 years ago or more rather, like Riot would not have hired me because I didn't play League, right? And seeing how they've kind of like grown from that over the past few years, like I've seen transparency where like the recruiting department will come to someone like me or like other women on my team to ask us how can we improve, our hiring process to attract more women in, for me, in the animation department, right? Because the numbers are still kind of low. So any women animators out there, please apply. But I think they're definitely taking a very proactive choice. They know where they can improve, and just by talking to their own employees to get those perspectives and stuff, I think is a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm really blessed that my narrative team is made up of mostly marginalized folks, for what it's worth. We're very queer, we're very gender inclusive on the team, which makes it such that the stories that we are wanting to write, to push, to talk about, to engage in, and they're all over, which is really, really exciting. I feel really, really blessed to be able to produce a group of like amazing individuals like that. But there are still departments, like you're talking about, that suffer from a lack of diversity. And that's, systemic within our education systems, within gaming as a whole. I mean, women are still not always having the best time being a gamer, for what it's worth. But it's definitely improving. And Riot really does take it seriously. A lot of our conversations are around representation and authenticity and actually speaking to those folks who partake in this lived experience, whether that is through our rigs or we actually hire diversity consultants quite frequently, for what it's worth, which is really, really cool because that is labor, and it should be paid and compensated fairly, and shouldn't just be another job you have to do because you're the token woman in the room. So Riot does take it seriously and put its money where its mouth is, where we do hire consultants for what we do, which is really cool. So I get to see that quite often in the work that I do specifically. And shout out to the Pride group. That's where this shirt is from. But this was last year's Pride shirt, so it's great. We do get merch and swag for it too.
So, does the UCSD Girls in Gaming still exist? Is it gone now?
I think it's gone.
Okay, I'm sad. So, little story time for my fellow Tritons. So, March, we had Women's Month, right? Celebrating Women's Month. I was an event lead for, Tara talked about our RIGs, our employee resource groups. We had a student org, so talking about like how Steph was discussing, it's systematic, right? So it's not just getting someone when they're 35 and they've been at 3 places. It's getting, okay, you're 18. Why do you want to do XYZ versus XYZ? Let's talk about different paths, maybe within STEM, maybe within production, maybe within art, that are more technical heavy, that maybe you didn't feel like you had visibility or that you were capable of. And I was one of the event leads for one of our university recruiting events that we did, working with different California colleges that have women's gaming orgs. So UC Santa Barbara, UCLA, UCI, so a bunch of our UC brothers and sisters, and just had some rioters. Steph was one of them, where we chatted with them and kind of, had advice and networked, And so if you are marginalized in here and you're like, I would like to work in games, and I'm also very passionate about that, maybe restarting UCSD Girls in Gaming would be a good idea, or making events, because then if I'm a hiring manager, right, like Steph was talking about with the profile, I think a big part of my job was because of my experience with Triton Gaming, and because I had done these events on a different scale. So it was really possible then to say, let's blow up the scope, because I had done multiple Girls in Gaming panels when I was a Triton Gaming officer, right? So that transitioned then to, hey, Abby, do you want to do this volunteer work for Riot? Yeah, I do, because I know how to do it, because I'd already done it. So I would say I would love to see that come back. I don't know, maybe you're in the room today that will start it, but I hope you will, and I'll come back and help support.
Okay, so we will ask one last question before we start to the audience Q&A. So what is your guys' favorite project you've worked on that you can talk about? And we'll start with Michael.
At Riot?
No, at anything.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, that makes
sorry,
things easier.
sorry, I should have
That makes
clarified.
things easier.
Yeah, talk about R&D.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah,
Do
great. No, thank you.
No, don't do it. That was a joke for legal purposes.
I would say, I guess, my favorite project that I've worked on in my career, I worked at Jam City before I joined Riot. Jam City is a mobile games developer, and I actually had a lot of fun working as a build engineer. So my role is a build engineer, and basically what that means is I take the engine code, whether that's Unity or Unreal, and I work on the process that packages that into the thing that you launch on your phone or on your computer. And as part of that process, I had to play through the different games, and I'm not the one that actually makes the game itself, but being able to work at the Jam City studio, I managed the build process for 3 different games, and seeing the changes that happened in each of those games was a lot of fun, just kind of like be a little play tester, and I was actually able to give direct feedback back to those teams and like let them know, hey, this is something that your QA guys might have missed. This worked out pretty fun, or this was really interesting. Being able to give that feedback was a lot of fun. So I would say probably there.
My favorite project, honestly, probably was God of War 2018. I had no idea what I was stepping into when I joined that studio. I knew like they just did really cool animations, over the top, fights and stuff. And previously I'd worked on cinematics for Mortal Kombat X, which kind of I think really helped me get there. So like, you don't know how you're gonna get where you're gonna get. I never expected to work on a project like that, but it was a very challenging project creatively, really pushed me out of my comfort zone in terms of animation. I got to do like a pretty big boss fight kind of thing. Never done that before. Mix in a lot of motion capture with keyframe work. And the team, honestly, like the people on the team were amazing. Like they made that project so fun, so memorable, despite like the long hours and that sort of thing. You know, I think it shows like how big a difference like the right team can be for your work life. So yeah, I'd say that one.
Heck yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to go with the Riot option. I was essentially the narrative lead for Star Guardian last year at the program. Yeah, it was really good and really hard. I wasn't intended to be the narrative lead, but as the narrative producer, that was where I found myself. So that means I was keeping cohesion, the story straight, us within the guardrails across the entire global program for Star Guardian, which meant everything you saw from the Anime Expo booth to the metagames in the game, the visual novels in both PC and Wild Rift, the cards you saw in lore, all of the global campaigns, the music videos with Porter Robinson, all of that kind of stuff was run through myself and my narrative team to make sure that we were actually telling the right story and it made sense and it was cohesive with all the lore that came before and set us up perfectly for the future and was actually a collie when a collie speaks like that. No, she can't say those words because she would never. And yes, Lux, that really is Lux, and no, she's not dead and it's fine. Like, answering all of these very fun questions and keeping it straight and producing a bunch of documentation to help and running a bunch of meetings and doing this globally at the scale for Riot for a summer event was exhausting and wonderful and amazing. And for Magical Girls, even better. Star Guardian is amazing. I love it. So I'm going to say Star Guardian. Yeah.
I think last year, I mentioned USC. I got my grad degree in game design, master's in game design at USC. And during that program, you have to be a master's thesis, so do creative direction of a whole game. And then you have a bunch of undergraduate game design students who listen to you. So I had a team of about 20 people that listened to me, bless them. And it was a year-long project, and it accumulated, right, in our expo showcase that was on the front page of Twitch. And something, I cried, y'all. I was home alone, but I cried. I don't know if anyone watched IGN in the early 2010s, question mark? Greg Miller from Kind of Funny Games. Yes, I'm seeing some nods. Okay, Greg Miller played my game on stream, and it freaked me out because I had watched him on my iTouch in middle school. So it was a very full circle moment of being like, oh, I remember listening to this guy talk about like PlayStation games, and now he's playing my 45-minute game that I directed with this team of people that are so talented. And it was a very full circle moment for me of being like, okay, this is it. Like, I think, I don't know if you say made it, but you're like, I think this is what I meant to do. And it was just very affirming. And I wish the same for each of you to have that kind of like grounding moment of like, I worked hard and it paid off. And feeling that is very satisfying.
I had a similar moment with a couple of my indie games, a couple tabletops, Magical Girls again. I made a Madoka Magica tabletop fan game, like a Dungeons and Dragons for Madoka Magica, and it's got like, has like 90,000 downloads at some point.
Love to see it.
I get played, I talked to somebody at a party and they're like, oh yeah, I'm spinning up this Madoka Magica tabletop campaign. And I was like, somebody's playing my game that I didn't tell them to go and play it, excuse me? So like there's some cool moments there. I think I'm gonna split this, and it's difficult. One's Riot, one's not Riot. But the first one was when I was working on the Pokemon trading card game online. We were tasked like with 3 months to redesign the game from the ground up entirely, narrative-wise, and we all got to do our own pitches for it. And my team's pitch was basically like Harry Potter houses, but for all of the card types. And you had like a school uniform that like evolved, and you went through different stages of Pokemon evolution. And like to really sell it, we basically just got to make an anime opening for the as an animatic. I wish I could have kept that because it would be probably my favorite memory from game dev. And then the tie is a Riot memory. If anybody's been playing League on the newest patch in 13.10, all of those new items that came out, I was really fortunate that the team worked super collaboratively, but at the end of the day, all of the names that were chosen for the new items were mine. And then I got to write flavor text for everything. So like Echoes of Hellia, Cry of the Shrieking City, all of those and all the flavor text was all written by me. And then Twitter, when they all came out, started tweeting at me like the fire writing gif, and I was just like, oh, this is lovely. I got to contribute meaningfully to the narrative of my favorite game when I would be the type 5 years ago to be reading all of Spider Axe's tweets, trying to piece together lore from these little items and stuff, and then I finally got to write some. So, yeah.
We
It
had
felt
a
really
good time working with Tara. We would work with Tara again.
Thank you. I'd work with you guys again too. I have to.
Also true.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for answering all of our questions. I hope we weren't too annoying. Real quick, before I give you guys a chance to plug whatever you want, I'm going to explain how the Q&A is going to work. I've got my two friends over here, Magnus and Owen. Once I hand the mic off to them, you all can raise your hands. One of them's going to run up, vet your question so we don't have any weird or offensive questions being asked. And then the other one will come and hand you a mic, and we will have you ask your question. So I'm just going to start that off. Feel free to start raising your hands. And in the meantime, if there's anything anybody else wants to plug, we'll start with Melissa and go all the way down the line. And again, thank you all for coming. We appreciate it.
No is acceptable.
I don't
Thanks
think
for
I
having
have
us.
anything to plug.
And yeah, you guys can start raising your hands.
Yeah. If you are a marginalized person and you're interested in becoming a producer in the industry, I think my Twitter is available somewhere. Please hit me up. I actually have a game production community called the Game Producers Guild that I have started with some producers from elsewhere in the industry, in Ubisoft and Bethesda, and a bunch of a mentorship program and mentees and all that good stuff. So if you want resources and you want help, come find me. I'm willing to help you.
I will second that also.
I post cat memes on Twitter, and I'm at snapping. Thank you, ABBY_Sherlock on all social media platforms, similar to Steph. If you have questions, feel free to ask. I try to be open. It's a circle, right? I have a mentor. Ideally, I can be a mentor. You learn and you give. So yeah, thank you all for having us today too.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I wanted to volunteer for this is I go out of my way to speak at schools like this because I went to school in Colorado where there basically are no game dev companies. And I always try to be the game dev mentor that I didn't have growing up. So I'm at Riot Yasuna, YASUNA. Please just hit me up. Happy to talk, give advice, give portfolio reviews or whatever. Also, nobody here, no, Steph, you worked on it. Shout out to Riot Forge stuff. They just came out. If you haven't checked out Convergence and Mage Seeker, please do. They're real solid.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh, do you have something? Nope. Oh. I'll mention there's the Animation Diversity Foundation. You can search them right on Twitter. I think they just opened up applications maybe for scholarships and they also will choose people that can they'll get you a GDC pass, and you can find your own way there, and they'll also set you up with mentors and stuff. So that might be a good place to look for support.
Beautiful. Thank you all for coming again. And now let's move on to our first question.
Hello. Could you share a day in your life? Like how's your
Sorry.
routine? Like a day in your life.
Oh, where's my YouTube vlog? Yeah.
So I go over to the Google vending machine and grab.
A day in the life of a producer
Yeah,
is,
speak for us.
I will speak for our producers,
production.
is a lot of meetings, to be fair. It's not a joke that most of our days are spent in meetings, facilitating collaboration, chasing down problems, trying to find solutions, talking and talking and talking. We talk 40 hours a week, pretty much. For me in particular, there are some standard rituals and things that happen based on the team that I am currently producing or where we are in the pipeline. And this can look like a stand-up, this can look like a table read, this can look like a writer's room, this can look like a jam or a retro or a sprint review or those kind of things, depending on where we are. But it's very meeting heavy and it's very collaboration focused to try to set all of the other devs on the team up to be able to be unlocked to do their work.
I'll speak as the engineer on the panel. So for us, it's a lot less meetings, but we do have daily rituals that we want to upkeep. So we practice agile. I don't know if that's
What is
across-
agile versus waterfall, Michael?
No, don't do it.
No,
No, no,
we're
no, no.
not
That's a
doing
whole
it.
talk.
Not
That's a whole
CSE.
talk. We can't. We don't have
This
time
is
for
not
that.
CSE
No,
140.
no.
We're not going to software
No, no,
engineering.
no.
Stop it.
If anyone says they're doing agile by the book in game dev, they're lying.
But yeah, basically, we have our daily stand-up, so we got to go to those. And every 2 weeks, we have our retro, which is basically an analysis of how our sprint went and how we want to maybe improve on things. And then after those rituals are done, basically, there's meetings that I have with other team members as needed if I need to talk with them about things, get a little bit more insight on work I'm doing, or if I need to talk to them for something that I need their help with. For the most part, though, I'd say it's around 4 hours that I have to myself that I can just spend heads down coding. This is more around a mid-level engineer, though. As you get up to like higher, more senior level, that's when you'll have more people coming to ask you for questions, people that are going to be sending you code reviews. So that's when you'll have to probably actually block out time yourself to be like, I need this time to do work, do not disturb. Right? But for the most part, right now, as a mid-level, it's like, okay, you fulfill your daily rituals, you meet with people that you need to get your work done, but you have a lot of time to actually do heads down work for your sprint.
So I roll out of bed. And I stumble to my living room. No, I do have to walk my dog in the morning too. So, but yeah, Riot has a lot of rituals, as they've mentioned. On my team, we have our stand-ups. We're also encouraged that, like, if you have work you need to get heads down on, like, you can opt out of these stand-ups and like leave a Slack message or something like that. But on the animation side, we attend like whatever kind of strike group we're working for that sprint in, and we'll have like daily stand-ups. The animation group itself will have, I think we have 2 meetings a week. Where, one's like a sync-up meeting or discuss whatever we want to discuss. The other is like dailies, so like, we upload our work to Sync Sketch, I think, and the leads, and everyone is encouraged to like give feedback to each other. My team, we use Discord as well to try and simulate the workspace since we're, heavily remote, and we have people outside of the LA office as well. So yeah, there's a lot of meetings, but there's a lot of like time to heads down as work, and you're allowed to totally like advocate for what you need, at the moment. So.
Yeah. Who's next?
Thanks for your question.
Magnus and Owen, if you guys want to grab the next question. And Owen, you want to hand me back the mic at 5:10? Yeah. Producer's yelling at me, telling me we gotta leave soon.
As producers do.
Producers.
Yeah. On time, on budget.
I was wondering if you guys had any advice about, you mentioned the importance of networking and sort of cold emailing people in a way that would facilitate further interaction with them.
So like many, many years ago, I started kind of doing that, and for me, I wanted to like have a conversation, right? Like I want to understand what their day-to-day is like, what they thought about the studio it is they work at, what they expect of an applicant. I have to be very mindful that like everybody's super busy too, so like you may not get a response at all. For me, it's, a simple thing as a please and thank you, a follow-up after saying thank you for your time, that sort of thing. But being respectful of, the person you're reaching out to, because, they don't know you, they don't owe you anything. So I understand it's very difficult to do that, but I think it's something you can, with practice, like just improve that. And again, like I believe in authenticity, so just treating them like a human being and respecting their time and who they are.
Yeah, I think it's really important to not ask something you could Google.
Yeah.
If you can go get a Google answer and you feel like that's a good use of someone's time, it's probably not. And so there's a lot of resources out there, and start by going to these resources and finding what you need to know from there. And then, when you do want to cold open to somebody or reach out to somebody you admire or that you see in the industry that's working in a space that you're really interested in, again, make sure it's not the blanket, so how do I get into games? Because that's not a good use of their time. It's not a good use really of your time in this way. So make sure what you're asking is appropriate and that, they're giving you their time. And so if there is something that they can get out of it too, whether that's practicing their mentorship skills, their ability to go speak if this is something that they really enjoy, their ability to network with the future generation, again, find that there's something that they can get out of it too. And if you can lead with that and try to build it into a relationship, always good. And there's a lot of ways to network that isn't a cold open email, a cold open LinkedIn. We've got coffee meetups, we've got, and I actually prefer those to the game dev drink ups, although I do go to the drink ups, but alcohol and, that's fun. But go to the coffee meetups and go meet game devs and go to where game devs hang out and do that and just be respectful and be a person and, all those things.
International Game Developers Association is a good way of doing that too. They hold a lot of events like that.
Yeah.
And even things like this, the fact that you're in this room means you're working on stuff like that.
I got a referral through the IGDA.
Yeah,
so
IGDA is great.
Yeah, if you're looking for programming, where was she? She's over here. So there's the IGDAF Foundation, which takes students and Velocity, next gen leaders.
Velocity is closing applications on the 31st. So
Yeah,
you
in
should
2
go
days.
put an application into Velocity if you'd like to.
And they'll send you to GDC and you can network. There's Code Coven. There's Girls Make Games. There's
Girls Who Code.
Girls Who Code. There's Latinx in gaming. There is, we have a wonderful AAPI group that also does a lot of outreach. So find your community. There's we have queer gaming, Pride, GGGP, gay gaming professionals. Yeah. Yes. So there's just no matter what your community is, there are people out there for you. Is what. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be just I'm gonna DM them on LinkedIn. It can be I'm gonna apply to this program that will help me then meet these people, so I don't have to cold DM them.
But if you do add somebody on LinkedIn and you don't know them, write a message.
Please.
Please, just write a message.
Yeah, feel free to add me on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, but please preface it with hey, I saw your panel, so I'm not just who is this?
Michael has nothing to add. We're amazing.
Yep, basically.
Hell
Yeah, let's go.
All right, cool. Want to go on to the next question? I think we'll probably have time for
we can
one or
hang
two more.
Logistically set up right now.
And
We'll have it so they won't swarm you and stuff. We just want clarification on whether we can announce it if we can.
I'll be able to max of 30 minutes for 3 of it.
Okay, when would it end?
We would be going at 5:40.
5:40?
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, Campbell. So y'all have mentioned that Riot is a very player-centric company. And as a user experience researcher, I'm wondering, has there ever been an experience where maybe Riot had a misunderstanding with the players? And how did you respond to that misunderstanding?
Constantly?
Oh, you mean season start?
Yeah.
no.
Season start.
Hello.
That's a big one.
Yeah. We're humans, so we do our best to understand, our target audience and the player segments and what drives that. But what I want as a player is not the same thing as what Tara wants as a player, to be clear. I am a cardboard tier player. This one over there is what are you, plat, diamond, something ridiculous?
I finished 2340 season 2.
she's really
which is,
good, and I'm
high
not.
Diamond. I'm trash now, but I was good.
So what I want as a player is absolutely not what she wants as a player. And so understanding those different segments of players and who we're catering for and why we're building what we're building is very much in the product domain of discipline. And so that's one brand flavor of producer, if you will. You can go into the product side of things, which is user focused and off of that research and off of that data, and then we break it down into target segments, and maybe we're going after the challenger, or maybe we're going after the collector, or maybe we're going after the person who really just wants some lore in the game. But all of those players want a different thing, and sometimes what you're going to put out for one of those players is actively going to like not only not satisfy, but make another segment mad. And that's okay as long as we're doing it intentionally. Sometimes we make mistakes, we do, and we miss the mark, and then we try to correct it as quick as possible and figure out where we went wrong and listen to that feedback loop and make changes. But it's part science and it's part art, and you just kind of have to have a strategic approach to who your audience is, and we really do try to do that in the decisions that we're making.
Yeah, it's really important there to like think about that problem space in everything in life. It's non-binary. So it's never just black or white. You're not always going to make something that's universally loved. It's also going to be hated by some section of the population. So like taking those pieces in for like how much good you're doing, but to put a really specific answer, like in terms of what you were talking about, like we kind of mentioned season start, like we put out a season start video that wasn't quite what players expected. You know, they wanted something that was like character and lore driven and really focused on that. And that wasn't what we had planned. It wasn't because of a lack of resources. It wasn't because we just weren't putting the effort in. It was because we thought that that would legitimately be a good and interesting turn on it. It wasn't. So we're working on that, and we're figuring that out. But like I can tell you from the mouths of leaders at the highest tiers of the studio, one of our big efforts that we're working on this year is player trust, re-earning player trust, keeping that player trust. So like the big mid-season update that just happened was a direct result of that. It's something new that we're trying to experiment to see how players like a big mid-season shift up in the item meta, more kind of akin to like a mini preseason in the middle of your season. You know, is that something that works for folks? Is that not? You know, and making sure that we're keeping a really good eye on all these risk factors and stuff to make it something that players feel like they like what we're doing, they trust what we're doing, and we know that we missed the mark on that. We're trying to work on it. Like, that's really all that we can do.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Unfortunately, I think we're out of time. However, some of our panelists have graciously agreed to do a little bit of a meet and greet in the lobby. So I'm going to have to kick everybody out. If you want to stay for the meet and greet, line up outside the theater, outside the sliding doors, in a calm and orderly fashion. Anyone who's not being calm and orderly,
Everybody panic. Yeah.
and
Thank you all. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
too.
everyone.
Thank you. Before we get up, do we want one more
Also,
picture?
thank you to them for staying behind past the time they're required to be